Hi, and welcome to our newest video series, Ask a Therapist, where we sit down with some of our most trusted therapists. Today we have Dr. Tammy Nelson and Alicia Muñoz answering your questions about couples and relationships. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
We're going to start with Alicia. Alicia, I have a question here that reads, my husband and I have been married for 23 years. Our youngest son just left for college, and we find ourselves struggling with an empty nest. I always thought this part of our life together would be filled with travel and excitement. Instead, we're struggling to find things to do together. How can we rebuild and work on reconnecting?
Well, I just so appreciate your desire to rebuild and work on reconnecting. That's beautiful and important. And I've found that with people who struggle with empty nest, often the struggle is one that involves an identity shift. You know, it's really, really common for parents when their kids grow up and leave home to kind of be left in this disoriented space of wondering, okay, what now? I don't have to, take care of a kid's schedule. I don't have to chauffeur anybody, all over the place. I no longer have to worry about somebody else's needs and physical health and emotional health. And, it's very disorienting to kind of have to look around you and say, well, who am I now? And who are we now? So it's just really common. And I like to think of it as an opportunity and to invite couples to reconnect and to start to ask themselves and each other, who are we? Who do we want to be? Who were we before kids? What did we, kind of put on the back burner that we want to reconnect with and re-engage with? What gave us pleasure and joy? And what do we think is going to give us pleasure and joy now? There are many ways to do this. I think Tammy can probably speak to this. She has some cards on date nights coming out in June that will give you ideas or could give you ideas on fun things that you could do with your partner if you're at a loss for ideas. But I think that one thing you need to be prepared for is that when kids aren't around to kind of absorb your attention, you're going to be faced probably with issues that you haven't looked at for a while, issues that you maybe have swept under the rug that are going to start to crop up, resentments or anger that hasn't been addressed or grief over losses that, you may have kind of quickly gotten busy and avoided feeling or facing. So be prepared for this to be a struggle. Be prepared to have some obstacles come up as you redefine who you are and begin to explore who you want to be. And if you kind of struggle to the point where you shut down or aren't able to talk to each other, that's a good time to call a therapist, to call a couples therapist to help guide you through the process.
Tammy, would you like to add?
Yeah, I find that time of, launching your kids, first, it should be a celebration, like, good for you, you did it. Big accomplishment. And secondly, that, I agree with Alicia, it takes time. First you have this big celebration of releasing the kids into the world. And then it takes time to adjust to a new identity, like she said. I think you really have to create a conscious vision of what you want for this next part of your life. It's like a new developmental stage. I call it second adolescence. Like when you are suddenly creating this separation and individuation from your family, but your family is the family that you created this time. And so you get to discover your sexuality in a new, different way. You get to make noise, like, because there's nobody in the house. You can have sex wherever you want in the house. You can have sex in a whole new way. You can dress up. You can role play. Maybe all the things that you didn't get to do because the kids were around. You don't have to have sex as parents anymore. And, it's a whole new exploration of like how to party, how to explore food, how to go out, where you want to go out. You can travel, don't get a puppy. That's my number one recommendation. Don't try to replace the kids like with another baby, and don't sit around and wait for grandchildren. Don't keep your kids' rooms as like a, a shrine to them. Like, move on to the next phase of your life.
So good. Especially the don't get a puppy advice.
Yeah.
I wish I listened to that 2 years ago. Okay, the next question is for Dr. Tammy Nelson. About 2 years ago, I found my partner was having an emotional affair with a coworker. She convinced me it never went beyond the emotional affair, never got physical, and she wanted to work through it. After a few months of therapy and hard work rebuilding our trust, we were able to get back to where we were. Then last week, I ran into a mutual friend who confirmed the affair actually had gone beyond emotional and that it was indeed a full-blown physical affair.
Mm-hmm.
I'm torn with whether or not to bring this back up again and threaten everything we've rebuilt, or do I let it go knowing that I might harbor some resentment?
Well, it sounds like you're going to harbor resentment either way. So, bringing it up or keeping to yourself is not going to change whether you're resentful. Number one. Number two, most people don't totally disclose the extent of their affair because they're trying to protect their partner, not because they're trying to hurt their partner. So if your partner didn't tell you the length and breadth of the actual infidelity, most likely it's because they knew that you'd be hurt. But there's another part there too, where they're trying to protect that relationship, thinking that they could get back to it or keep some of it. And, just to know that people usually don't look for another partner, they don't necessarily look for a person outside of your relationship. They look to be another person outside of your relationship. And so I would be really curious about who your partner became when they were with this other person, whether it was sexually, emotionally, whatever. Like what was that part of them that they were looking for that they felt like they couldn't integrate into your relationship? Because if they feel like they can't be that sexy, charming, intelligent, whatever it was that they found outside, it makes sense that we can't be everything with one person. But I would want to know, are they blaming you? Like thinking, oh, you'd never be that sexy with them, or you'd never be into that, or you don't like Indian food, you'd never go to that restaurant, or you're not interested in them in that way. I would want to challenge that and figure that part out. Like, how can we integrate all the parts of ourselves in this relationship? Like, what's really scary about that? Because if she's blaming you, I'd want to really challenge that and figure that out. Now, the other part is, how honest do you really want to be? What is your monogamy really going to look like going forward? And that's something I think you should talk about. Like, let's sit down and have a conversation based on what's already happened, what we've already disclosed and discovered, and decide, do we want things to be private or secret? Is it better to have a don't ask, don't tell relationship? Because maybe we don't need to know everything. Maybe we don't need to know all the details. Maybe I kind of colluded with that because I really don't want to know. Or maybe, it's better to be totally transparent and give each other a little bit of room to have outside relationships, as long as we're totally honest about everything. Because usually it's the honesty that hurts the most if it's betrayed. Maybe it's not the emotional part. Maybe it's not even the sex. Maybe it's the fact that they weren't honest with you that hurts. But I think you have to figure that part out.
Alicia, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just agree with what Tammy's saying in terms of, why did this, what function did the affair serve, and what stories are both partners making up in their minds about the other partner that they can bring out into the open and share honestly and explicitly, so that they can kind of, cross-check and corroborate, are these stories true? Is my partner unwilling to, do these crazy, kinky things that I want to do, so I got to go outside to find that? Or, is that something we could grow and develop and engage in together? Or on the other hand, sometimes the function of the affair, or whether it's emotional or physical, it can be also something that people engage in from an attachment, avoidant attachment place where you're really trying to keep your partner at a distance and avoid intimacy. And if that's the case, then it's worth exploring, what's so scary about intimacy, and can we work on becoming more intimate without going outside the relationship?
Thank you so much, both of you. Really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us during today's session. If you would like to submit a question, just DM us and we'll keep it anonymous. And remember, while Tammy and Alicia are amazing therapists, they're not your therapists. And this video is for educational purposes only. If you are looking for a therapist, search our directory at therapist.com.